Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm joined by Joyce Ng. And Joyce, we're talking about my favorite group of categories at the Emmy Awards, the limited series. We both dressed in our best plaid for this one, I see.
When are we not in our best plaid?
I wear plaid every day, but when the summer comes, I guess I got to figure out what I'm going to wear.
I know they need to start making like short sleeve, more like summertime plaid.
Really. Short sleeve plaid. J. Crew or Gap, if you're watching this, hello. We'd love for you to provide us with short sleeve.
We'll do some SpawnCon for it, so.
But no, Joyce, limited series. I feel like that is a great entry point because that feels like something that one of the many leads of these scammer shows would have suggested.
It's true. Someone's going to start like a plaid a summer like clothing company.
Yes.
And then it's going to go under in like 2 years. And then in 7 years, there'll be a limited series somewhere about it.
And it's going to be great. We've talked about this in broad strokes, but a lot of these shows are limited series that feel like 10 years ago, 5 years ago would have been a movie. Now are just shows, limited series shows where you have like major stars who are maybe not known for quote unquote television, like an Anne Hathaway in WeCrashed, or Amanda Seyfried on The Dropout.
Listen, Anne Hathaway got her start on Get Real on Fox in 1999, which I definitely watched.
I did not, but so now they're shows and they're very lavish productions. They are perhaps maybe a step up from what you would think of as just a regular old series, at least from a production standpoint or certainly a cost standpoint, but there are just countless ones. Before we're recording here, I'm looking at the list. It's just endless. I'm just going to shout out things that I'm just seeing as I'm scrolling. Moon Knight, major show from Marvel with Oscar Isaac. Outer Range, Josh Brolin Amazon series. That's like Yellowstone mixed with M. Night Shyamalan, I believe. Roar, which is from the women behind Glow, who did like an anthology series with Nicole Kidman in it and Issa Rae and just a bunch of other major stars. It's on and on. The Girl from Plainview, Nine Perfect Strangers, The Thing About Pam. Joyce, every one of these, and none of these I have in predicted. No offense to these shows, but I can't find room.
This year, I think we've mentioned this before, but like limited is usually the most competitive in that it's very high quality and like acclaimed. And not to say like these are not high quality shows, like from a production standpoint or anything, but now it feels like it's just a lot of shows, but none of them have particularly stuck out like as a really strong frontrunner in any way. Like there's no like Queen's Gambit.
No.
Or even like a Mayor of Easttown.
None of these are that makes it feel very wide open because I agree with you. I don't think there is a front runner here to win, certainly. And even, I mean, for nominations, you could tell me like, again, like The Dropout, I have actually in first in my predictions. You could also tell me that The Dropout just doesn't get nominated somehow. And I'd be like, okay, like it would not surprise me, I guess, even though I think it'll get like multiple acting nominations. Every one of these, I think you could make the case for and against. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, it feels like movies. It feels like a lot of these shows to me also are like, post that Big Little Lies kind of like vibe, where it's like you have a bunch of movie stars doing high class TV on a limited series front. And yeah, I don't know. It's just very hard to pick a 5 or 6 in this case. I don't know.
It actually would be probably easier for me if it's just 5, if it ends up being 5 slots. Because sometimes for some of these categories, I'm like, I don't know why to put in 6. Like, sure, this person. Like,
well, I'll tell you what, one of the shows I pulled out just because I wanted to get other ones in was Made from Netflix, which is third in our odds and seemingly will get probably nominated. And like you always say, like, where's the Netflix show when we're doing these? Because there always seems like there's a Netflix show. It's certainly... its earnings report aside, still like the most broadly popular
you didn't unsubscribe?
I didn't unsubscribe. Okay. No, I still subscribe. But yeah, I don't have Made in because I wanted to find room for my beloved WeCrashed, Joyce, which I have in.
I do not have WeCrashed, and I still have Made in. I think Made should be okay, although I can see it like underperforming in the way that Unbelievable did.
That's what I was kind of thinking.
A lot of similarities there. And Made missed the PGA now, which Unbelievable did not. And it won WGA in adapted. So it kind of a mixed winter for it.
Yeah.
But it's, again, it benefits from being on Netflix, highly visible. I think like Margaret Qualley is definitely getting in. She could even win. So yeah, I still have that in. I do not have WeCrashed. I'm sorry.
So here's what I have in for my 6. And you can tell. So I have most of like I have Dope Sick, White Lotus, Dropout, Station 11, Under the Banner of Heaven, and then I have WeCrashed. So that's instead of Made. The top 6 in our odds at the moment are Dope Sick, White Lotus, Made, The Dropout, Station 11, and Under the Banner of Heaven. I can make the case for Station 11 missing also, because I feel like it's a little maybe underseen / kind of pushed aside by a lot of flashier, newer ones. It came out, I think, in January. It's a fantastic show. I love Station 11 so much. But anyway, there you go. Those are my 6.
Yeah, I don't have that. I have Under the Banner of Heaven, Dope Sick, White Lotus, Made, The Dropout, and then I put in The Staircase. I have not watched The Staircase yet. I haven't gotten to those screeners yet.
Mm-hmm. They just sent them out.
I put that in there like a month ago.
Yeah. So
yeah. So and like this is a case where it's like maybe it's better as 5 because I was just like we have a 6 spot there, and I was like I'll just put The Staircase for now.
The Staircase is Colin Firth and Toni Collette based on the podcast. Another thing is a lot of these shows are podcasts that have been adapted for shows. So The Staircase is that. WeCrashed was that. A bunch of I feel like there's more that I'm forgetting. The Dropout, I believe, was that, right?
Yeah, Gaslit, right?
Gaslit.
Yeah.
I didn't even mention Gaslit. Gaslit on Stars with Julia Roberts, major Best Actress winner Julia Roberts and Sean Penn.
Yeah, I watched Gaslit and I feel like Julia would be a lock for a nomination if it were on like HBO or something. And this is not a knock on Stars. This is a reflection of the Emmys not touching anything on Stars. So
it does feel like the fact that it's not on a popular platform for the
like
Emmys.
An Emmy favorite
platform. That's the word. That's exactly that. You phrase it exactly right. Is going to hurt that, but I think I have Julia Roberts in. To my great reasoning is she's Julia Roberts. That was it. That's all I
mean, she didn't get in for Homecoming, and we thought she would.
I guess the thing I would say about the Homecoming performance is that it's not like there was nothing necessarily. It's not transformation, like in a period piece here. Even though obviously Sean Penn is the one who's doing like a lot of makeup work. Looks like Peter Sarsgaard in Green Lantern, somewhat, or William H. Macy on Dropout. Very similar looks.
I mean, William H. Macy in Dropout is like 90% forehead.
So is Sean Penn. I feel like in Gaslit.
He has more like well-rounded prosthetics. Sean Penn.
I guess so. It just always. It also looks like, reminds you a little of Jared Leto in Gucci. When you have like a person with
that's more like, I mean, that Jared and Gucci is more full-bodied as well.
True. No, I have Julia Roberts in because I think it's a transformational performance. But
see, the thing is like I don't think she's obviously not as transformational as Sean Penn is, but it's still like a great, like she still looks like Julia Roberts, but it's still a great performance because I feel like she really embodies Martha Mitchell, who like most people don't know who that is, right? But she's still like she was still a public figure. Like if you Google pictures of Martha Mitchell, I had no idea what she looked like.
No, me neither.
Like Julia Roberts does not like physically look like her, but the performance is really great. And it premiered on Sunday. So the first episode is a lot ensemble-y, like very ensemble-y, a lot of setup stuff, obviously. And she's not in it a lot, but she'll be in it more later on. But she has a lot of great moments in the first episode alone. So she gets slapped by Sean Penn, and then she's like, my mom has slapped me harder.
It's another one of those shows that, again, in keeping with the theme of a lot of these, is like reconsideration of a historical woman in a real life person. So like we've seen that with The Dropout and Inventing Anna, and all these shows I feel like are kind of like giving you a different perspective on a person you maybe think or maybe didn't in this case, right? With Watergate, though I'm sure people are watching this being like, you dummies, not knowing Watergate history so well.
Listen, we have to give Martha Mitchell her shine now. So, I mean, I've heard of John Mitchell and Martha Mitchell.
Right.
I've since done a deep dive into her Wikipedia page. So
I would say like a good thing I think, or a thing to part of the reason why I have Julian as well is while the show, like you said, I think not getting as much shine because of the network, even though there's nothing wrong with Stars, it's just not as popular, obviously, as Netflix or HBO Max from like a visibility standpoint. Julia Roberts has been everywhere, I feel like, for this show, and they've done a really great job of getting her out in front, getting like a somewhat comeback narrative for this, I feel like, or just she hasn't been around in a while, and we all love Julia Roberts, and let's like kind of remember that we love her and get ready for Tickets to Paradise, which you and I are both hyped as hell for the fall, but also like for this show that is really strongly like gotten
her
really
New York
reviews.
Times interview was great last week. Did you read that one?
I did. I thought that was a great interview. She was on Colbert. She's been really everywhere. I think she did stuff with EW. So it's like, for someone who I don't think I wouldn't call Julia Roberts press shy, but it's not like she does a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Well, also, I think she just does like press when she has something to promote, like when she has workout, right? So I think, like she hasn't done anything really in a couple of years. Like Ben is Back was like the last big thing, and Homecoming, that was the same year. So
I have
she's not just like constantly out there in your face.
No. For Best Actress, I have while we're on the topic, which we talked about this a little in our column on Friday, but I have Margaret Qualley, obviously, for Maid, Amanda Seyfried for The Dropout. I have Amanda Seyfried in first. I think she could still win, even though, again, The Dropout feels like everyone was talking about it, and then it's ended, and now 3 weeks later, people are like not as much talking about it. But I think it'll withstand, and she's amazing on the show. Then I have Viola Davis in for The First Lady, though that feels not, like we talked about, not totally stable. Joyce, the reviews for First Lady were mixed. And
yeah, well, I've seen the whole season.
Yes.
And have you watched any of it?
Not, and just the first one, not anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, the show, like I understand what they're trying to do, but it's not completely cohesive, and I feel like they should have just like focused on one FLOTUS a season.
It seems like that would have made a little more sense.
Yeah.
And just having seen just the first one.
Yeah, because it doesn't like fully justify the structure of like jumping back and forth between the three of them, and they try to find like through lines in every episode, and some feel forced and others feel more natural. And the third episode, which is this coming Sunday, it's a flashback episode. So Viola, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Gillian Anderson aren't in it at all. It's like their younger selves, and it's how they met and married their future husbands. And that was actually, it felt cohesive because it was like, we know what you're trying to accomplish here,
right?
But like the other ones, it's and it just feels like each one of them gets shortchanged because you don't get to spend enough time with them because they feel obligated to jump back to like Eleanor Roosevelt or go to Betty Ford or whatever, and it just feels like it's like sort of like a greatest hits of like specific moments,
right?
But yeah, so I don't know. I don't if it gets renewed. I don't know if they'll change the structure because they've definitely talked about like a season 2 with like future first ladies and stuff.
So Viola, I still have her in, like we said. The reviews, not the strongest reviews of the show. I didn't see a lot of outright negativity for her performance from critics, but online on the Twitterverse, Joyce, people were pretty taking some couple of clips of her more histrionic scenes and like out of context from the show and like kind of like dunking on them. That was over.
Well, it's not even histrionic. It was like the lips.
So yeah, that was, I think, on Easter Sunday. So not the greatest.
Yeah, because that was when it premiered.
Not the greatest way, maybe perhaps for Viola Davis to spend her Easter Sunday. And then an interview that was published, I guess, this week with the BBC's Today. She was asked about the criticism, and she said, "We're recording this on Tuesday, so this went viral this morning. Another viral hit for Viola Davis for the First Lady. The critics serve absolutely no purpose." Now we're not clear on like what critics, is she talking about critics
like professional critics,
or just critics who are like people online, like a keyboard critic, you know what I mean? Like it's she doesn't really differentiate, but critics serve absolutely no purpose because she says, quote, "They feel like they're telling you what you don't know, like, oh, you're surrounded by people who lie to you, and I'm going to be the person who leans in and tells you the truth. It gives them an opportunity to be cruel. The thing about critics is they serve absolutely no purpose." So I'm gonna guess critics won't love that. I think I already saw some on social media being like, not Viola, but I do see what she's saying. She's basically like, I know what my worth is and my performance, and such is life. She also, I think, said on here that not every performance is awards worthy. I gotta find that exact quote, but that was another one that she said.
Yeah, it kind of feels like she's conflating the reviews for the show, which lean negative, let's say.
Right.
I think it's at like a 35 or something on Rotten
Yeah.
Tomatoes. Yeah. And then obviously, like you said, Twitter really had a field day with that clip and like zooming on her lips and everything on Easter Sunday. And I totally understand her being hurt. Like that is very hurtful.
Yeah.
To see everyone just making fun of you and like your performance and your lips. And here's the thing, like 90% of those people who share that clip that day will never watch the show. They just saw that on their feed and it's like, LOL, look at her pursing her lips. And it's like, why Viola, why? Like, and then they forgot about it. And the second episode aired this past Sunday. Like no one was talking about like her lips or anything anymore this past Sunday. It's like, it's the internet, they move on. So I feel like it sounds like she's like conflating those two reactions, like the reviews of the show. And I haven't read most of the reviews of the show, but I don't think any like actual critic, like professional critic, was dragging her in the reviews. Like they might say like she doesn't look like Michelle Obama, which we all agree with, right? And her lips are distracting, but like for me, I got used to it. Like I didn't even notice it after like an episode. And,
I also
and then,
think
the strong negative internet reaction, I think, is more hurtful, and it feels like she's like responding to both.
Yeah, well, I think when she says critics, I mean not like, I do think she was referring to like the Twitter snark more than like the
yeah, but then like the rest of her quote is
right. Not every performance,
like professional critics,
right? That's true.
And then, but like her performance is totally fine. Like
yeah, and I actually still have her in. I think she will get in. I actually think this kind of comment would help her get in, because I think people in the industry are like, yes, critics are not, we don't need them. So
yeah,
nothing she says here is going to get her colleagues mad at her, I would argue.
Yeah. And I mean, like I think the best performance in the show is Michelle Pfeiffer.
Right.
Like she.
Do you have her in?
Yes, I think we talked about it last time. Like I had her above Viola.
Wow. So
Like
do you have them both?
Really good, and that performance feels the most naturalistic because it's also the less mannered of the three. Like you could see them trying to make Viola look like Michelle, right?
Right.
And obviously Jillian, like she wears like fake teeth to look like Eleanor Roosevelt.
Right.
And like Michelle like kind of looks like Betty, but not really. Like she still looks like Michelle Pfeiffer, right? And it's like it's like the same thing with like Julia Roberts and Martha Mitchell, and even like Amanda and Elizabeth Holmes. Like they know they don't look exactly like this person they're portraying, but it's about like embodying their qualities. And I think that really comes through Michelle's performance as Betty Ford. And like I feel like she's the one that's the most shortchanged because you just want to spend more time in like the Ford timeline with her.
Yeah, I guess I haven't read enough about the show, but I do think it does feel like the kind of thing that was screaming to have like more of like, rather than cross-cutting between the three, like a little more like start with Eleanor Roosevelt, then middle of the season, like Betty Ford.
Well,
and then
the funny thing is like
Michelle
when I've
Obama.
talked to people before the show premiered, or even before we got screeners, like a lot of people thought that would be the structure, because it's like, how are you going to do like these three women who were, from like three different lifetimes, basically, and like three different eras, like they're not going to share scenes together. So a lot of people thought it would be like 3 episodes for each person.
Yeah, maybe would have made more sense, at least easier to get people's heads around what they're doing. I don't know. So that's the First Lady, but I would say this is maybe just my very curated Twitter life, but I feel like while Viola Davis was getting attacked for her performance, Anne Hathaway is ascendant for WeCrashed, Joyce, at least on my Twitter feed. I'm just like weighing in. People love her.
She's great on WeCrashed.
people love her on WeCrashed. She is so good on WeCrashed. It's an incredible performance. We talked about this in our column. I see even today I saw her dressing as a Na'vi from Avatar was like going trending up on my feed. I saw people like being like, this is a full 15 minutes of Anne Hathaway in an episode of WeCrashed. she's just awesome on it. It's just so good. It's a great performance because she's so funny, but also like never treats the character as a joke. And I feel like that's like a real subtle distinction. And I think maybe a different show or a different performance would have made her more of like a punchline and maybe had less empathy for the character. But Anne is so empathetic towards her character. It feels like that even when you're laughing at her, because I think the character Rebecca Newman does a lot of ridiculous things and says incredibly ridiculous things. You're not like, it's not like making fun of her. I don't know. It's a really subtle turn. It's like for a big performance, it's actually like very subtle line that she's walking. And I feel like, you know, maybe WeCrashed when it came out was lumped in with Reason, with the Dropout and Super Pumped and all these scammer shows. And it ended last week. And I feel like the finale was great. The last few episodes are really entertaining. And yeah, I just found the show incredibly sticky to me, where I've been thinking about it a lot, and like it's just a lot of fun. So I'm way in on WeCrashed. I have Anne Hathaway in. I don't know if you do, but
I do not currently have. I haven't updated since April 5th. Maybe I'll put her in.
I think she's
no. I really liked her on WeCrashed.
So
like she's great, and you know the show is really more about Rebecca than Adam in the end.
Yeah,
there's a lot more Rebecca backstory. I think it's the third episode that's like the flashback to her childhood, right? Also a great moment when Peter Jacobson as her dad is like, when she announces she's going to go into acting, and then he's like, pop the champagne or get champagne, my daughter's going to win an Oscar.
So good. It's just so good. You're exactly right. It does feel like a lot more about her. And I think, again, just because of Anne Hathaway is a major star, arguably as big of a star, I would say maybe even bigger than Jared Leto, right? Like it's like, so she's like an A-list and he's an A-list. And so them together on the show, it is definitely like they're co-leads basically. And I don't think, you know, like the Dropout has a similar dynamic with Amanda Seyfried and Naveen Andrews, but Amanda Seyfried is the star and Naveen Andrews is definitely not the star, even though he's wonderful in it. And, you know, like even Inventing Anna, it feels like Julie Garner is the star, even though Anna Chomsky is like a major part of it. You know what I mean? Like, I think that this show, they're equals in a way that these other ones aren't.
Well, yeah. But I mean, I would say for Inventing Anna, like they're co-leads, but they're going to run Anna Chomsky and support her, which is, I mean, I get why they're doing that, but still, like it's framed through her writing that article. But anyway, WeCrashed, yeah. I think we mentioned this before, but it feels like just, you know, how people feel about Jared, especially on the internet, has kind of it's kind of been like a repellent. Like people are, you know, less inclined to check it out. So I don't know, like maybe if someone else were playing Adam, maybe it would have been bigger. Like it premiered in March, right? Yeah.
It's funny. I mean, literally the tweet I saw today about Anne Hathaway as a character from Avatar was like, I know we're all tired of Jared Leto.
Yeah, like that's like the thing, especially like online. It's like, you know, between like Gucci and Morbius.
Yet at the same time, watching the show, I'm like, he's actually hilarious on it. It's like one of his better performances. I think.
He's actually not that big.
He's not. He's doing an accent, and he's doing like, he has prosthetics for like his nose, and he's got contacts in. He kind of looks like Adam Newman, not really. And there's actually a lot of like obviously footage and photographs of Adam Newman that he doesn't necessarily track as exactly the same. And the accent is slightly bigger than I think the real Adam Newman's accent. At the end of WeCrashed, they do like a little bit of
I know
double, like they do a thing of them. Yeah.
The TCA panel for the show in February, he was like asked about his accent and like how he got, you know, the Adam accent, and he was like, an accent is just a series of mistakes. Like,
right.
Like, you're just like making noises.
When I talked to him about Gucci, I think he said something similar because he had like an accent there. Obviously, did you know that he had an accent in House of Gucci?
I didn't. Tell me about it.
Really subtle. You could really not tell, but he does this like very, very.
I need to rewatch Gucci too.
Yeah, very subtle Italian accent. No, I think he's great on the show too, and I think I have him in as well. Let me take a look. But I just wrapping up actors before we get to Jared, an actor. So I have Anne Hathaway. I have Julie Garner in for Inventing Anna. And I have Julia Roberts in. So I'm kind of like going, a lot of long shots are odds. So beyond Margaret Qualley, Amanda Seyfried, and Viola Davis. Then it would be Claire Foy for Very British Scandal. Jessica Chastain for Scene from a Marriage, and Gillian Anderson for The First Lady would be the top 6.
I have Amanda and Margaret, and I think they're the only two that you could, I wouldn't even call them locks. I would just say like they're relatively safe.
Yeah.
And then I have Michelle Pfeiffer, Viola Davis, Claire Foy, and Julia Garner. But I do want to hope Dick Ann. I don't know who I would drop.
Put her in. She's so good. I really
maybe
think
I'll drop
so
her First Lady. I don't know if, I mean, again, speaking of stars, Showtime also not a very it's not an Emmy favorite network.
No, it's not. We talked about that, I think, on Friday. You mentioned like The Good Lord Bird at this time last year was maybe like something people thought was going to
poor
really
Ethan
clean
Hawke.
house, and then it didn't. That was also why I think Anne Hathaway could get in. I think Apple TV is ascendant. Obviously, like it has a lot of attention on Ted Lasso and won Best Picture for Coda. So I think it's kind of making inroads into the space. And when you have like a big noisy Anne Hathaway performance like out there, I think people are going to check it out. And I don't think they'll be disappointed. The first couple of episodes are very good Anne Hathaway episodes, even of WeCrashed. You don't even have to go through the whole thing, even if you're just watching like the first.
Yeah, they do her very bad quote, and was it like the second or third episode?
Yeah, it's just great. She's so good on it. I just really enjoyed the show. For actor Joyce, let me just take a look here. Yeah, I do have Jared in. Way to go, me. Way to go, past self. Putting our boy Jared.
I'm still trying to figure out how to get Anne in here.
So here I have a messy list, but here's my.
Of course you do.
When
do you not?
It's always messy, Joyce. I have Michael Keaton for Dopesick, Andrew Garfield for Under the Banner of Heaven, and Ben Foster for The Survivor. I interviewed Ben Foster, so that's just a note for people.
We know your MO. You predict people you talk to.
So clear, but I'm not wrong about this. He's in third place in the odds. He's incredibly good in The Survivor. It's the only one of these that is like a movie, not a show.
Like
and
a movie.
It is a movie, right? It's a TV movie, not a show. But it was a real movie at TIFF like last year. And it could have actually, I think, if it was theatrical, I think we would have at least entertained the notion of Ben Foster getting an Oscar nomination.
It's like a bad education.
Yeah, he's actually that good in the movie. And then I have Jared for WeCrashed, Colin Firth for The Staircase, sight unseen. I still haven't watched it, but I'm just like, it's a juicy character based on the podcast if you've listened to it or read about it. And I think Colin Firth is like poised to knock it out of the park. And then I have Hamish Patel for Station 11, who is so good on that show. And I could say I don't think he's going to get nominated because the name recognition for the people I've left off in this category is through the roof. Left off Paul Bettany for A Very British Scandal, Oscar Isaac for Scene from a Marriage, Sebastian Stan for Pam and Tommy, which is a very flashy performance and I think could get him in, Evan Peters for Monster, Samuel Jackson for The Last Days of Pulteney Gray. There's also Oscar Isaac for Moon Knight, Joyce. Any Moon Knight love there? Miles Teller for The Offer.
Yeah. I know, I'm just like coming through.
There's just so many. There's a lot.
You didn't even mention your fave Super Pumped.
Love Joseph Gordon-Levitt in Super Pumped. Would love to get him in. He's actually so good on it. It's one of my favorite Joseph Gordon-Levitt performances in a while, probably since like 50-50 maybe. Like that was like a great
11 years ago.
I like Joseph Gordon-Levitt a lot.
I do.
As like a lead, he took a pretty big break because he was in so many different things.
He had a big 2012. And then he directed Don John and then just kind of disappeared. Just did
hold
other
up his
stuff.
IMDb. In 2012 he did, or 2011 he did 50-50. Then
Yeah,
Dark Knight Rises,
2012.
Dark Knight Rises, Premium Rush, Looper, and Lincoln all in 2012.
I saw all of those in the theater.
Great movies, all of them. And then Don John in 2013, which definitely hasn't aged well, but I actually think was like pretty good for like a first-time director actor kind of making the transition. Love Scarlett Johansson in that movie. She's like a real hoot. He was in Sin City. The Interview is an uncredited. He did The Walk, which was this had Oscar buzz. It was. I saw it at New York Film Festival, and I remember being like, it was like a big deal because of like the immersive 3D and stuff. I would actually like to revisit it. He was saddled with a very thick French accent. He actually sounded a little like the man. Night Before, which somehow is like a very fun, watchable movie that is not like a rewatchable because I just feel like it doesn't exist. Anthony Mackie and Seth Rogen.
Yeah,
and
it
Joseph
was like
Gordon-Levitt.
yeah, it's like lost in time.
Yeah, it really is. But it was a lot of fun when it came out. Snowden for Oliver Stone. This had Oscar buzz, didn't work.
Mhm.
He was in Chicago 7. That was like his big return, basically. He
Yeah.
was very, very serviceable in Chicago 7, not a flashy role.
Listen,
And then
he won a SAG award for it, so.
then he was in Mr. Corman for Apple TV Plus, which didn't work as a series because it didn't get renewed. And then Super Pumped, and he comes in Super Pumped, just guns blazing, absolutely live wire as Travis Kalanick, the co-founder of Uber. An incredibly enjoyable performance. I think the show worked. I don't know how much of that show you watched. And
I have not watched that.
Peak me. So like obviously like big grain of salt here for people who are watching this are like that. I mean, not my cup of tea, but it's from the guys who did Billions, and it's got a big Wolf of Wall Street vibe. The thing I love about the show and his performance is I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt, if you talk to random people on the street, not that we do that anymore, you would say like he's a very likable, nice guy, right? He just exudes a certain kind of like every person niceness. And he has some of that charm in Uber and Travis Kalanick on Super Pumped, but it's like so toxic, and he uses that, he weaponizes his like inherent likability because you're like, as a viewer, going along with him being a total sociopath at times and just like really bad, because you're like, I do like Joseph Gordon-Levitt and he's really likable, and it's like kind of seducing the audience into going down dark corners and paths that maybe they shouldn't be. And I like shows like that, and I think that like he does a great job on it. So I don't have him getting in, all that being said, but it's just too crowded. I would love to get in. He's so
I
good.
know. So I have Michael Keaton and Andrew Garfield. I think they're like the male version of Amanda and Margaret. Like they're probably, I mean, I think Michael Keaton is locked for a nomination.
Yeah.
He like won everything in the winter. And I think Andrew's looking good.
So talk a little about that show, Joyce, before you go on, because I know you watched almost all of it, right?
Yeah, they sent 5 of the 7 screeners. I watched all 5 screeners. It premieres on Thursday. So I think we should do a PSA about how to watch the show first.
That was what I was going to ask you first. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Because it's an FX show.
It's an FX show.
But it's not
we
on
actually
FX.
We actually have a story that our friend Caitlin Thomas wrote a couple weeks ago, but we'll re-promote it this week about how to watch the show because it is confusing.
Yeah.
FX show Under the Banner of Heaven. It is not airing on FX linear. You can't find it on your TV channel guide because it is just streaming exclusively on Hulu. But this is not an FX on Hulu branded show like Mrs. America or like A Teacher, if you recall those from the past 2 years. So obviously Disney owns both Hulu and FX. So what happened was in December, FX, they just decided to discontinue the FX on Hulu brand because it was confusing to casuals. Because what was the issue was on Hulu, they have the FX on Hulu hub where those shows like Mrs. America lived. But in that hub, they also put in the FX linear shows that just streamed on Hulu the next day.
Okay.
Like Better Thing, or like Snowfall. And like, casuals don't know the difference. So they were just like, we're just going to streamline the brand and just call it FX, like FX linear shows. And then Hulu only FX shows are just FX. And then that hub on Hulu is just FX. So Under the Banner of Heaven is the first FX show to stream exclusively on Hulu to debut since the discontinuation of the FX on Hulu brand.
So what you're saying is I can watch it on Hulu.
Yes, you can watch it on Hulu. Do not look for this on FX linear. So, yeah. But the show itself, it's long episodes. All 5 episodes so far, over an hour. It's like an hour and 4 minutes every episode.
Wow.
Yeah. It's you learn a lot about Mormons. It's a true case.
Yeah.
From 1984. You can read about it. And it's based on a nonfiction book. So it's not like your straightforward murder mystery. And it's more about Andrew's character. He's the detective, Jed Pyree, also Mormon. And he goes through this crisis of faith when the more he digs into the case, he uncovers that the Laffertys, or like the two brothers who killed Daisy Edgar Jones's character. Not a spoiler. Real life is not a spoiler. Okay.
And I think it's in the first episode.
Yeah. And he, they became like indoctrinated into like fundamentalist Mormonism, like its whole thing. So yeah, he goes through a crisis of faith, and it's more of like a thinking murder mystery, also mixed with a lot of history lessons, because they do reenactments of the 1800s of showing when like Mormons like went to Ohio and like went to Missouri, and like Joseph Smith, who's like the main head guy. And yeah, I don't know how people feel about those. I was like way into them. I was like give me more of these, because it was like both funny to me in a good way, and also I was like intrigued by it. So if you're just going in there expecting like him solving a case, get ready for Mormon reenactments.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like necessarily like a True Detective.
No, but there is a lot of talking. And the first 2 episodes, it's a lot of like exposition background. Like Andrew just does a lot of like reacting in the first 2 episodes, because he's like interrogating people. Like Billy Howell plays Daisy's husband, and he's like explaining a lot throughout the entire show. So he might have the second most amount of screen time, really, because he has so many scenes with Andrew Garfield. So then like later on, there's like other stuff. They exit the interrogation room, and yeah, the cast is like uniformly great. A lot of non-Americans here playing, Utah Mormons.
Yeah.
Russell, who I love, I think he's like the standout supporting guy for me. Like I put him in after, because they sent the first episode a month ago, and I put him in like after that. Like, so he plays Dan, one of the brothers who killed Daisy's character.
Right.
And he's the first one to be indoctrinated. And he, like, their dad made him, there's like 5 brothers, 4, I don't know, a lot of brothers. And like their dad made him like the man of the house. So he goes through like a bunch of stuff, and he's like anti-tax, and he runs for sheriff.
Wow.
But he's like, like he's always been like a very like unpredictable actor. Like there's this like dangerous quality to him.
Yes, exactly.
And I think like he weaponizes that like really well in this role. Like you kind of got a little bit of that in Falcon Winter Soldier last year, and he should have been nominated for that. So yeah, so he uses that really well here. And Daisy's also good, but she's like definitely supporting, because she's not even in the 5th episode. Like there's like a little glimpse of her during a montage. And I think she only has like 1 scene in the 4th episode. She has a good scene in the 2nd episode in the TV station, but she's obviously the victim, and it's like she has to like reconcile like being in love with this guy, but she's also like a progressive, and she sees like what's happening to like her brothers-in-laws and like the family becoming like extremists. So I mean, so I don't know right now if like Andrew will definitely win. I feel like I need to see the rest of the show first.
Yeah, and I feel like it needs to generate more. It hasn't, the buzz I think is still in its nascent stages for the show. But I think as it comes out, because of Andrew Garfield, it'll get a lot more attention as it goes.
Yeah, he's having a banner year. So
he is. Mm-hmm. Wow, that was really good. I think it took me a second to get it, and then I got it, and I was like, damn, that was good. Joyce, let's do supporting actress while we're talking, even though I don't think that Daisy Edgar Jones is in our odds under supporting. But
I think she's in lead in the production center, so we can't move her, but no. I think
so Jennifer,
I think she'll be submitted in supporting.
Possibly. So this is another one. Tons of people. I went pretty chalk, except one exception. So I have Jennifer Coolidge for White Lotus, presumably the front runner here. People love Jennifer Coolidge on The White Lotus. It was a good show. No signs of slowing down. Andy McDowell for Maid, I have in second. Caitlin Deaver for Dope Sick. And then I have Florence Pugh, Connie Britton, and Laurie Metcalf. And I left out Ellen Burstyn for the First Lady, who is 4th in our odds.
Well, I totally, no offense to her, I totally forgot about Ellen Burstyn in the First Lady. No, she plays FDR's mom, but she's not in it that much.
No, it feels like she's this high in the odds for the name recognition.
Yeah, like because she's Ellen Burstyn. It feels like when we were all predicting her for Pieces of a Woman,
Yes.
right? Yeah. So yeah, I have Jennifer, Caitlin, Connie, Andy, Tony, Collette, and Florence Pugh. I still have her.
So Toni Collette, I think, would get in for the staircase if that show is like pays off on the premise and in the podcast, it's a juicy part as well. So she was like my 7th one. I was like, I think Florence Pugh actually will get in. I just think she's such a blow up on Hawkeye. She's so good. Maybe that's a Hope Diction, but I don't know.
It's definitely a Hope Diction. So it'll be interesting to see how Marvel does this year, because last year they had WandaVision, obviously. And this year in limited, they have Hawkeye and Moon Knight.
Yes.
So, I love Hawkeye, but
I think of the two, no offense to Moon Knight, which is not finished yet. There's 2 episodes left. Hawkeye is the more successful show so far.
Yeah, I prefer Hawkeye to Moon Knight.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Even though like Moon Knight's not finished yet, but yeah, but I think, I don't know. I think people think Moon Knight might do better because of the people involved, like Oscar Isaac and Ethan Hawke.
So both of them are really great on the show, and I think Oscar Isaac is in particular like really strong because he's playing multiple characters.
Also an accent.
Huge, going big with the accent. Ethan Hawke, I feel like, is just not phoning it in. I love Ethan Hawke, but it's just like nothing is about his performance has surprised me. Not that that's bad. It's just like Ethan Hawke's awesome. He's always awesome, and here he is awesome again. So I wonder if he is not as much of a contender just because like there's not a discovery aspect to the performance. Where I think Oscar Isaac, even though he is such an acclaimed actor, he's doing things even on the show where I'm like, oh, I never thought I would see Oscar Isaac do
and it's
this
like
accent.
He's like funny, and I don't know if people realize like he's funny.
He's really funny. It reminds me, it's like a mix of I think of the performance as a mix of like Russell Brand and Forgetting Sarah Marshall, his Oscar Isaac's junket interviews with John Boyega for Star Wars, and then like just like serious thespian Oscar Isaac as well, plus Indiana Jones. It's just like a really, really fun mix. I'm highly enjoying his performance.
One of my big issues with Moon Knight is in the 4th episode when they have VHSs. I believe it's Ethan Hawke who calls it a VHS player, and I'm like, it's a VCR, guys. You know this. You live through this.
The writers maybe didn't though, Joyce. Maybe it's a younger room.
But that's when you give a note.
But no, so I have Florence Pugh in because I think like she is so good on the show that it's going to be undeniable. But maybe she's not, and then maybe it's Toni Collette. I do think
it's. I would love it if Florence got in, and this is like very much a Hope Diction of me having her in. It's just like I don't know what I would replace her or who I would replace her with right now. And I guess like if Daisy gets in there, I'll put Daisy in.
Right.
And I think at one point I had 3 White Lotus ladies in here, with Alexandra Daddario as well. I don't remember who I dropped her for, but apparently I did.
Well, maybe do you have Laurie Metcalf in?
I do not, and I do like Laurie on The Dropout too. Her character is missing through like a big chunk of the show, and she comes back at the end.
And it definitely is like a real supporting performance. I feel like, again, I don't think people care about this. Maybe I do. And it's like a hobby horse. I'm like, she is actually supporting. Like she's not in it a lot. She comes in, it's like a great, character, kind of gives Amanda Seyfried, Elizabeth Holmes the what for. It's just really good. And she's so good on it, I think. And she actually does articulate, I think, a part of the theme of the show, which is how obviously, like, I think the show is about like how Elizabeth Holmes was certainly not supremely ethical at times with Theranos, but also was like taking advantage of a system that was like built to like infantilize her, and kind of like she took advantage of all these people who were trying to take advantage of her. And then Laurie Metcalf is verbalizing like, just the world is definitely a sexist place, but you doing this made it so much harder for everybody else who's coming after you, and like is so mad about that. Not even that, as mad about that as she is about like all the duplicity, I guess. I just think it's a great performance, and she gets like a really few really strong scenes. So that's why I have.
Yeah,
her.
she had, especially towards the end, because like she gets like the heroic turn right when she returns. But you know where else Laurie Metcalf is good?
I do would say because I know you watched.
I know. Yeah, I've seen Hacks and she's good on it, so that's all we can say.
that can only help maybe for and then supporting actor Joyce, another chaos magic for me here. I have Murray Bartlett for The White Lotus, again another White Lotus fave here. Peter Sarsgaard for Dope Sick, Seth Rogen for Pam and Tommy. I have Naveen Andrews for The Dropout, Nick Robinson for Maid. I'm sorry, I don't have Nick Robinson for Maid. I have William H. Macy for The Dropout and Jake Lacey for White Lotus. So I did not have Nick Robinson, but he is next in our odds.
Yeah, I have Murray, Naveen, William H. Macy, Peter Sarsgaard, Y. Russell, and I still have O.T. Fabbenye. I think he does a good job as Barack Obama.
So he's also
I don't know if he'll get in. This is again no shade to him. I was like, who am I gonna put in the sixth spot?
So he also has WeCrashed, and he's a very supporting part on WeCrashed, and it's a fun performance because he's such a dick, and like notably like understood a dick, and also is like, it's funny because on that show he's clearly the voice of reason, but because he's so unctuous compared to Adam, you're actually like not rooting for him, even though he's obviously right. It's a very funny performance. I think the one person we didn't talk about, and just we kind of briefly touched on before, for The Offer, Matthew Good for The Offer plays Robert Evans. Anyone I've talked to about the show, and even I've seen the first one, Joyce. It comes to Paramount Plus soon. It's about the making of The Godfather from the perspective of Al Ruddy, who is a producer.
It's premiering Thursday.
Is it already Thursday? What month is this? April? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we're almost in May. Yeah.
Wow. No, you're right. April 28th is Thursday. So it's premiering Thursday. Matthew Good plays Robert Evans. Just a home run part, obviously, because Robert Evans is such a character in Hollywood history, and Matthew Good kills it. He's so good at it, and I do think he could get in. And honestly, like if he got in the show, actually, you know, who could say like how these things are going to perform? Because like we said, Paramount Plus maybe doesn't have the reach as like a Netflix or an HBO Max, even though it's like popular, and who knows which shows will pop and which shows won't. But if it does, I think you can make a case for him even to go like towards the top, because it is such a Hollywood fable type ready-made performance there that he's quite good in. So I could see him getting in and even winning.
You know what else is on Paramount Plus?
What else?
1883.
Yes, Yellowstone.
Well, no, Yellowstone is Paramount. 1883.
Yellowstone spinoff. I'm sorry.
Right. Yes, yeah. So yeah, it's unlimited.
It is.
You predict Sam Elliott.
I didn't predict Sam Elliott. Also, is he lead or supporting? I think he's lead.
He's in lead. I think he's in lead. He's in there, right?
He's in lead. The supporting is Tim McGraw.
And Faith Hill.
And Faith Hill. I didn't predict.
But, you know, now that he's apologized.
Yeah, no, I didn't predict them for limited. I do have Yellowstone rating well, I think, in the drama categories. I don't know if the Yellowstone umbrella will fan out for 1883.
Where is Sam Elliott in here? I can't even find him. Oh, he's down in 31st place.
Yeah, there's just a lot of people, Joyce. Like we said,
yeah, there's a lot of famous people here. There's like Will Ferrell, Paul Rudd.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about for The Shrink Next Door, an Apple TV show. Sure.
Yeah, Sean Penn for Gaslit.
Amazing.
Impeachment. Remember Impeachment? Clive Owen.
Yeah. Well, Clive Owen for Bill Clinton. You know, Beanie Feldstein is having a moment because Funny Girl premiered this week on Broadway, so maybe she gets back.
Also, like a very interesting confluence of headlines between Funny Girl reviews and Leah Michele yesterday.
Yeah, I saw somebody talking about that because Leah Michele's back for Spring Awakening, which is next week on HBO
and then
Max.
Maybe some like TMI.
Yeah, she talked about showing her vagina to Jonathan Groff, Joyce.
Yeah.
Great moments in
with
PR.
a desk lamp.
Yeah, just great. And I'm in. That's great. Great moments in getting your name in the headlines.
You know, you do what you got to do with promo. So
really good.
And then there's Tom Hiddleston for Essex Serpent, which the trailer came out today.
It did. Just do it briefly on that, because then I think we're gonna wrap up. But it's briefly do Essex Serpent here.
I've seen the whole thing. We can't talk about it because it's under embargo.
Right.
But yes, I've seen the whole thing, and Tom Hiddleston wears a very nice scarf in it. I think I can say that. You see it in the trailer.
And I think it's not in the still photo. So
yeah. And I was big into crocheting in college, and it reminded me of the scarves that I used to crochet in college.
amazing.
I have not read the book this is based on, but I did read the Wikipedia synopsis of the book.
Just as good.
Yeah, just as good. So I clocked some of the things they did change and maybe did not change. And so originally Keira Knightley was supposed to play the female lead in this. And she had to drop out because of like childcare issues with COVID, etc. And Claire Danes replaced her. And I feel like when you watch it, you can see why this is a very Keira Knightley project, because Keira Knightley loves a period piece. Yeah,
She does.
Yeah.
Joyce, last thing here before we sign off, we want to just say we're going back to the Oscars playback this week, Joyce.
We are, yes.
And we're doing the 1999 ceremony, a fraught ceremony then and even now,
featuring my favorite film,
Saving Private
Ryan.
So stay tuned for that, and we'll be back more with Emmy stuff, Joyce. I love the limited stuff. I'm sure we'll talk about it many times because the nominations are not for 3 months. So,
and there's still like 37 shows that are going to premiere in the next month to make eligibility. So
it's gonna be great. All right, talk to you later, Joyce. Bye.